Hello again, and thanks for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm David Percy. Up on the hazardous weather graphic, we've got a winter storm warning out for tonight for Bristol Bay, and that's for a couple inches of snow along with freezing rain. Through the night tonight, possibly ending toward tomorrow morning, but that's mostly for the areas north and west of King Salmon. And then there's a winter weather advisory out Nunivak Island, Yukon Delta, as well as the Kuskokwim Valley for about the same thing for areas of snow and freezing rain, several inches of snow possible, and also freezing rain, making things pretty slick and icy. Otherwise, that's about it for the watches and warnings. So moving on to the satellite imagery, you can see the moisture here coming up. This batch of moisture causing the fuss over Bristol Bay today and tonight. A little bit of a break here. Another band back through there, main frontal boundary there across the Fox Islands, east of the Pribilofs. Not too bad of a day there for the Pribilof Island areas. Just some scattered showers out over the Aleutians. And this moisture pushing northward there, bringing some snow and gusty winds, still gusting 25 to 45 miles an hour here from the St. Lawrence Island area up across Seward Peninsula in toward Kotzebue Sound, Selkirk Valley areas there, and then high pressure making it dry with some clearing over the central and eastern part of the state today. Also some dry conditions down across the Panhandle. Got some clouds coming southeastward here, just kind of skirting the eastern part of the Panhandle, southeast coast. Basically dry conditions there though. And as that kicks off to the southeast, high pressure will build into the interior here and start to increase those winds over the northern inside waters, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, and other areas there, and start to kick those northeast winds up. So windier day tomorrow coming up there. Otherwise, this front trying to push inland, but kind of breaking apart. A lot of clouds will come in with westerly flow aloft, but not much in the way of precipitation will make it too far to the east, any significant anyway. And on the chart today, see the frontal boundary right along here, give or take there this afternoon, and areas of snow and blowing snow again, St. Lawrence Island into the Seward Peninsula. New snowfall amounts pretty light up there over the Kotzebue Sound area, and mixture of rain, snow, freezing rain here, Bristol Bay. Mostly rain along the Alaska Peninsula, a little bit of moisture sliding into Kodiak Island here. This high pressure center sliding eastward and pretty strong though, 1,055 millibars. That keeping all the central interior down into the Gulf and the Panhandle dry. A lot of clouds though here coming in with again upper level flow from the west-southwest coming over the top of the ridge aloft. But dry conditions there and some clearing actually here up over in the northeast interior down to the Copper River Basin. A little bit of clearing south central Alaska, and also for the Panhandle. A break behind that front there. Again, not too bad over the Pribilof Islands down to Nikolsky, and then some more rain and snow showers coming in to the central Aleutians with a weak trough out in that area, and then snowfall levels down to about sea level. Mostly snow showers falling out at Chimie and Attu. And for tonight, this system pushes up to the northeast. Really weak front here now, especially down in the southern portion. Just some areas of light rain, fog, drizzle for the Alaska Peninsula. Up into Bristol Bay again this evening to about maybe a little after midnight. Still hanging on to some freezing rain, areas of freezing rain here over Bristol Bay. And a little bit longer in the Kuskokwim Valley. Just look for snow, freezing rain, sleet, or a mixture of kind of wintry mix there. And then areas of light snow up over the, actually pushing eastward here, possibly into the central interior areas, and then back to the northwest there, Seward Peninsula into the Noatak Valley and the western Brooks Range. Otherwise, pretty tranquil here out over the Bering Sea behind this system. Just a weak trough out here with low pressure, maybe some scattered rain and snow showers, and that's about it out here. and kind of the calm before the storm. Otherwise, mostly clear. See high pressure up over the northwest territories of Canada, beginning to tighten the gradient up here over the northern panhandle. Also, Tanana Valley or around Delta Junction, probably will see an increase in the winds as well. And then for the day on Saturday, this is all that's left of that front, very weak, just a narrow band of some light precipitation along that trough axis. Rain down here to the south, maybe mixed over the Kuskokwim Valley, pushing up toward the Alaska Range. Areas of light snow up into the Yukon Flats. Snow showers, light snow, possible over just about all of the northern interior back out to the Bering Strait and the Noaa Valley areas, with scattered showers mostly off the coast here in the Gulf of Alaska, just isolated, and mostly cloudy skies south central Alaska, maybe a little bit of clearing in the Copper River Basin. And out here, nice break here in advance of that big storm, bringing 50 to 55 knot winds, storm warnings into the western Aleutians during the day tomorrow, with snow changing to rain out in that area there. And then we'll see here on the day on Sunday, that system, the low center tracks northward there, and the front pulls eastward. And since it's pulling away from the main low center, it's going to weaken considerably. You can see not only does it lose the storm force winds, loses the gale force winds, and possibly even the small craft advisory level winds down in this area here. So look for some rain and a little bit breezy conditions to come in, but not too bad for the Alaska Peninsula. Rain changing to showers for the eastern Aleutians, and look for some clearing over Adak and Atkut during the day on Sunday. Late in the day, this trough here leading into the colder air and more showery conditions will come into that area, but look for snow out over the western Aleutians, possibly some blowing snow again, gusty winds picking up, but not too bad. St. Lawrence Island to the Yukon Delta. Then there's a narrow band of some light snow along that trough axis, kind of separating these two high centers over the eastern interior. That could bring some snow showers or light snow from the Yukon Flats there, maybe as far south as, well, about Eagle, and then right on down the Yukon River there, more or less, until you get out to the Delta. Areas of light snow possible there. Dry for the northwest interior, Kotzebue, Selawik Valley, Noaa looking pretty good, as well as Kivleen and the northwest coast. Western Arctic coast, light winds, maybe some clearing. Chance of snow showers on the east side there, but those will be quite light. Winds will be light all over the central and eastern interior, right on down into the Gulf of Alaska. And light winds, mostly sunny skies for the southeast coastal areas. And from there, looking at the low temperatures for tonight, mid-20s over the northern panhandle, lower 30s down to the south, mid-20s up over the North Gulf Coast, and anywhere from 5 below to 10 above for the Copper River Basin, otherwise Valdez in the mid-20s, and 20s for south central Alaska, near freezing for Homer, mid-30s Kodiak Island, lower to mid-30s for Bristol Bay, and we'll see in the 5 to 15 degree range for the Kuskokwim Valley. Highs for tomorrow, teens, northern Kuskokwim Valley, but pushing 40 down over Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island area, Homer, 41, 27, Anchorage, Palmer, Talkeetna, maybe up to 33, 12 degrees for the Copper River Basin there, Gulkana and Copper Center, and Seward maybe pushing 37, upper 20s for the northern panhandle in the colder air, lower 40s down to the south and out toward the coast, and lows for the following morning in the 20s to near 30 for the southeast coast, above zero, Copper River Basin, Kuskokwim Valley, lower 20s south central Alaska, mid-30s for Kodiak Island, lower 30s Bristol Bay, followed by highs around 20 for the Copper River Basin areas, 30s to lower 40s south central Alaska, Kodiak Island, and Bristol Bay, as well as the Panhandle. And up to the north, lows tonight, 20 to 30 below northeast interior to the eastern Arctic coast, warmer and above zero back to the west. And for the Saturday afternoon highs, just about above zero everywhere, exception being the Fort Yukon area, about 3 below. Otherwise, following morning, milder temperatures, still below zero northeast interior, 5 to 15 below, above zero on the Arctic coast, in the 20s back out toward the Bering Strait and Seward Peninsula. And then Sunday afternoon, 5 to 15, eastern interior near 30, back to the west, single numbers and teens for the Arctic coast. For the southwest coast, lows tonight, mid to upper 20s, mid 30s for the Pribilofs, mild southerly flow, upper 30s, lower 40s for the Alaska Peninsula, mid to upper 30s for the Aleutians. Highs tomorrow, upper 30s and near 40 for the Aleutians, into the lower 40s for the Alaska Peninsula, Unalaska Island, near freezing on the southwest coast, mid 30s there for St. Paul. And Sunday morning, lower 30s for the Pribilofs, mid 30s out over the Aleutians, upper 30s to near 40 for the Alaska Peninsula areas, and upper 20s for the southwest coast, Macquarie, Nunivak Island, mid 20s for St. Lawrence Island. And the highs on Sunday afternoon, 30 to 35 for the southwest coast and Pribilofs, 35 to 40 there for the Aleutians, lower 40s for Bristol Bay.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic for Saturday morning. Big area of IFR here from the eastern Bering Sea right into the central interior. Then it becomes marginal east side on up to the Arctic coast and North Slope, VFR. Also on the southeast coast, VFR. And then VFR breaking out again here over the western southwest Bering Sea and from about Adak on out to the Komodorskis. For the afternoon, some of this IFR slips off to the east a little bit. Another patch here over the central Alaska range, and then IFR up into southern Prince William Sound, Kamishak, Kachemak Bays. A little bit of improvement there, Shelikof Strait, but pretty much good IFR here over the eastern Bering Sea. Next front, bringing another band of IFR into the western Aleutians. Conditions deteriorating slowly, but we still have some VFR holding on here to the southeast interior, central eastern Brooks Range, and all of the southeast coast. For Sunday morning, good VFR continues, Yakutat on down across the Panhandle. Otherwise, interior areas of IFR, areas of marginal VFR, and also some areas of VFR across the interior, but mostly IFR down along the North Gulf Coast, up into Cook Inlet and along the Alaska Range. Back in the west there, IFR in the Bering Sea improves there for, again, about Adak on out with some areas of VFR. And for Sunday afternoon, we've got a band of IFR along the Alaska Range here, otherwise marginal for Cook Inlet, south side of the Kenai Peninsula, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound IFR, and also IFR here, eastern Bering Sea into the Yukon Delta through the Bering Strait, breaking out to VFR, central Aleutians. And the Panhandle now, still IFR Sunday afternoon, some marginal VFR showing up around Elfin Cove, just to the north of Sitka. Passes tomorrow, Anatuvik, marginal VFR, and Adigan, marginal as well. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR, and Rainy IFR, Windy IFR, and Isabel, also marginal VFR there. Mintasta VFR, Tanita, marginal VFR, Portage, looking pretty good, not too bad, marginal VFR, and for Chilkoot and White, staying VFR for hopefully through the weekend. And for the freezing levels, warm air coming northward now 2,000 feet, almost up into the mid-Yukon River Valley area, 8,000 feet there over northeast Bristol Bay, southern Cook Inlet and Homer. Otherwise, cooler over the Panhandle and cooler out to the west. And for the icing, we've got areas of moderate with that big storm coming into the west out here. Tomorrow we've got significant icing coming in to the far western Aleutians there. Considerable moderate rime icing there, freezing level to 16,000 feet. Otherwise pretty good over the remainder of the state, pretty much icing free. Could be some areas of isolated moderate icing along the Arctic coast, northern North Slope, back down along the northwest coast, maybe the Noatak Valley, possibly on into Kotzebue, but not too bad. And the jet stream, big area high pressure centered here over the northeast Pacific, and flow kind of a really sharp trough here over the eastern Bering Sea, and flow coming over the top of that ridge, southwest, west-southwest, 135 knots over the northwest interior, lighter down along the North Gulf Coast, northerlies, 110 knots there just to the east of the Panhandle. And then that next big storm, we got another jet max out here, anywhere from 105 to 125 knots. And at 9,000 feet, feet. Westerlies, 70 knots there along the Berks Range, give or take, 40 to 45 over the western interior. South 45 here for the Pribilof Islands, and up to 55 knots there for the Alaska Peninsula. And then big increase in the winds out here with that intense front coming into the western Aleutians. South winds 80 to 85 knots there, slowly progressing eastward. And then west-northwest 40 knots there just south of the North Gulf Coast. Take a turn to the south, kind of a band of 40 to 45 knot northerlies at 9,000 feet there across the Panhandle. And at let's see, 3,000 feet, west winds 55 knots in areas there along the north slope and the Arctic coast, 45 knots over the Chukchi Sea. High pressure, lighter variable winds here, southern Alaska and the Panhandle. South to north flow at about 45 knots, again pulling that warmer air northward well into the southwest interior with those higher freezing levels. And then even stronger winds here up to 85 knots over the western Aleutians. Could be some severe turbulence, surface to 8,000 feet, shimmying at 2. Otherwise, Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, moderate turbulence.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snyder, and joining me again is Cindy Preller. She's the Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska Region's National Weather Service. Thanks again for joining us, Cindy.
Thanks for having me back, Dave.
Sure thing. And I love saying Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska's National Weather Service because that's not weather. Why is the Tsunami Program part of the National Weather Service?
Well, it's because the Weather Service absolutely rocks at warning people for every kind of, devastating natural hazard.
Mm-hmm. The mission of the Weather Service is to protect life and property. And so how does the Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska, which is a very unique office, again, within the Weather Service, it's not weather, how do those folks help us protect life and property?
The National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer is a national warning center, and we analyze seismic traces 24/7 all around the world. So when there's an earthquake anywhere on the planet, we see it and analyze it within minutes.
Within minutes, and there's actually a goal to have it under, was it 5 minutes?
If there is a tsunami warning to be issued for continental America, we must get that out, or shoot to get that out in 5 minutes.
Okay. Now that's not something I have ever learned to do, so I know it would be a struggle for me to do that under probably hours, but it is fascinating to watch, and the office is open on a regular basis for tours, right?
Absolutely. Come by Friday.
Okay.
Yep, every Friday at 1, 2, and 3 p.m. and they're open public free tours. And it's the most interesting place on the planet. You really should check it out.
Okay, and the office team is made up of people that are earth scientists, not meteorologists or atmospheric scientists. Talk about some of the types of people that work there.
Right, we are out of place in our National Weather Service, but we are geologists, geophysicists, oceanographers. We even have an astrophysicist on board. Computer software architects, electronic technicians that are brilliant and innovative. Our software is all written in-house. Our instrumentation is designed in-house. So it's a really, really unique place. And it's just a couple handfuls of people that work there. So
sure.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ways to get a tsunami alert message is on Twitter.
Right.
And I can follow the Twitter address, and we'll put that up on the screen for you there. But it's usually a very quick message that tells you initially what the magnitude of an earthquake could be and about where its epicenter was. What are some of the other ways that you can get that alert message?
Well, Twitter's my favorite too. Yeah. And you don't even need a Twitter account to receive it. So it just comes in like an SMS message. But you can also receive it via email, weather radio, of course, the crawler on your television screen. On the internet, Google Alerts, marine radio if you're out in harbors and boats. Actually, marine radio is probably,
it is a good one.
That's our partnership with the Coast Guard. We're really grateful for that, absolutely. But there's a variety of ways in dissemination.
Okay.
And locally, but locally in the communities, the sirens will go off as well.
Right. So lots of different ways to get that very important message very quickly when that matters to you. one of the ways that the Warning Center practices with communities is a test on a yearly basis, right?
Right.
How does that work?
Thanks for bringing that up. It's a controversial issue, but it's super important to help us warn better and really serve Alaskans. So the week of March 27th, the commemoration of the 1964 event, for that week we have a Tsunami Preparedness Week every year. We like communities to get out and do drills and practice and do everything we can to raise awareness. And part of that is a live code test where we actually issue the warning message live and we activate the emergency alert system, which means sirens go off, the TV crawler happens, and it's a test.
We're doing everything that would normally happen without the real threat of the tsunami, just to practice as much as possible.
Right, and this is a major partnership with the State of Alaska, Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, the Emergency Operations Center, and the Alaska Broadcasters Association. Without the media, we wouldn't be able to do this. So the three groups really work tightly together to do our best to warn, educate the public that this is happening so they don't wonder and get scared about it. It has been remarkable what we've learned. I mean, it pretty much breaks somewhere every time, but then we fix it. And it gets better. So a quick example is just a few years ago, we used to, when we issued a message, it would activate the entire state. Right? I mean, Kotzebue, Nome, Bethel, everybody would be in tsunami warning. And so now we can regionalize it to where the actual event is taking place. That's pretty huge. Right.
So identifying points of failure and also points of success and making sure we continue down that successful path so that folks are warned as quickly and accurately as possible.
Absolutely. And, you know, to get our communities involved to prep themselves, prep their businesses, prep their tourism, prep their schools, you know, just make this an annual thing they need to be doing.
Right. So as citizens wanting to be prepared, we should be prepared to learn more about that test that's happening usually toward the end of March every year.
Right. And you should be happy that it's happening. Instead of upset. Definitely be happy that it's happening.
Just as we test tornado sirens in tornado country, we also have to test the tsunami program as well.
Right. Because there isn't enough time. You know, for a local tsunami, the wave will arrive in less than 2 minutes. So it's super important that people know what to do.
Very good. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for helping us know more about the Tsunami Ready program and the test. And the Tsunami Warning Center is a very unique and very important job in the National Weather Service that is just fascinating to me every time I visit the office. So.
It's the only one for the continent. You really should come check it out.
It's an international effort.
Yes.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Dave.
And thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snyder. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Moving into marine forecast here for the south coast of the Panhandle, northeast winds on Saturday, 20 to 25 knots, and the north coast, north to northwest winds at 10 to 20 knots. Northern inside waters, specifically Lynn Canal area, north winds 30 knots, maybe some higher gusts, northeast 25. Small craft advisories also for Stevens Passage with 6-foot seas, and northwest winds at 20 knots for Clarence Strait. And for the day Sunday, not too bad here along the coast. South coast, northwest 15 knots, seas 8 to 9 feet, and variable to west winds 15 knots for the north coast, a little more easterly and lighter up to the north. Lynn Canal, winds swinging around to the south at 20 knots with 4-foot seas. North 15 for Stevens Passage, and north winds pretty light there for Clarence Strait at 10 knots. Prince William Sound, light variable winds tomorrow at 10 knots, seas down to 2 feet, and light variable winds also for the eastern North Gulf Coast with 5-foot seas. Western North Gulf Coast, east winds 15 knots. Barren Islands, south winds at 20. East winds 20 knots for Kamishak Bay. And southern Cook Inlet looking at northeast winds at about 20 knots. Light northerlies at 10 knots. Northern Cook Inlet. And for Sunday, Cook Inlet, north winds 15 to 20 knots, east 20 knots for Kamishak Bay. And the Barren Islands, southeast winds 25 knots, east to 25 for the western North Gulf Coast, southeast 20 over toward Middleton Island. And Prince William Sound, winds will be northeast 15 knots, seas 3 feet. Kodiak Island, south to southeast winds on Saturday, 15 knots, 4 to 8 foot seas. East winds 15 knots for Bristol Bay all the way down to Cape Sarachev, Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, all the way up to Sitkinak, east winds at 20 knots. And for the day Sunday, Kodiak Island, east to southeast winds 20 to 25 knots, east winds at 20 knots for Bristol Bay, southeast wind across the Alaska Peninsula at 20 knots, seas running 6 to 11 feet there. And with that big strong front coming into the western Aleutians tomorrow, we've got some storm force winds out from actually west of Adak, specifically Amchitka Island to Shemya, south to southeast 50 to 55 knots, seas 16 to 25 feet. Otherwise, Adak and Atka still looking at west winds at 25 knots. Variable winds 10 to 15 knots for the Fox Islands with 7 to 15 foot seas. And for Sunday, eastern Aleutians, west-southwest winds 20 to 25 knots. And some gale warnings for the central Aleutians now. That front weakening as it pulls eastward here, barely hanging on to the gales. Call it southwest 30 to 35 knots and in closer to the main low center or tighter gradient, still looking at storm warnings, Kiska to Shemya, southwest at 50 knots. Southwest coast, southeast winds 10 knots tomorrow, light variable winds for the Yukon Delta coast. And St. Lawrence Island, south winds at 20 knots, southeast 15 for the Pribilof, south winds at 15 knots for St. Matthew Island, but they'll seas up to 12 feet. And let me get out of the way here. For Sunday, south winds 20 knots for the Pribilof Island, seas up to 11 feet. Gale warnings for St. Matthew Island and the northern Bering Sea there for southeast winds 35 knots. The southwest coast, southwesterlies 20 to 25 knots. Strongest south of Nunivak Island. St. Lawrence Island, Norton Sound, east winds 20 to 25 knots. For the Arctic coast, Saturday, east winds 20 knots. In the Chukchi Sea, south winds at 20 knots. And for the day Sunday, looking at variable to east winds, 10 to 15 knots for the central and eastern Arctic coast. West side, south at 10, Chukchi Sea, east winds 15 to 20 knots. And for tonight again, gets a little windier here over the northern panhandle with high pressure building in, about 1,058 millibar high there over the Yukon. And retreating, that's going to allow some moisture in to the central interior, some light snow, and a little bit heavier back to the west and northwest with this weakening front here, trailing back with some rain into the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay. Should lose a freezing rain in Bristol Bay by tomorrow morning. Otherwise, break behind that front. Not too bad out over the Bering Sea tomorrow or tonight, but tomorrow, that next strong frontal system, very tight pressure field associated with the main low center that's just off the map there. So storm force winds coming into the western Aleutians and lighter winds to the east. A little bit of leftover moisture here for some light rain and chance of snow in the northern interior, dry over the panhandle. Next day, this front brings moisture into the southwest coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.